That is right. It is college football season practically. And Jimothy, myself, and Tubby, the best co-host in the business, are back today to break down two of the Power Four conferences. So, Tubby, welcome back to the show.
Talking about the real college football.
Yeah, State included. It's just these are the ones with the powerhouse teams, the more talent. A lot can be said about these two teams. And we're going to start alphabetical line now. So we're going to go ACC and Big 12 today. A lot of teams in these. I don't even want to count how many teams are in these anymore. I can't keep track. But there is a lot there, Tubby. Any initial thoughts on? Oh, here's the big question, because typically it's Big Ten, SEC. You can say who's number one, who's number two as far as power conferences go. Who is number three, though? Ooh, although the changing of the guard.
And it's because I don't know if I see a team in the Big 12 that can legitimately challenge for the national championship. When I look at the ACC, I see Clemson. And I think Clemson is a legitimate team this year that can compete for that national championship. And I think there's a couple other teams. I'm not saying they can compete for the national championship, but I think they're kind of getting a little undersold a little bit in the ACC.
Depth on both of these conferences. I don't think they have the powerhouses. Maybe the Clemson is the powerhouse, but if you look at the Big 12, they have a lot of really strong teams, but I don't know that they have the top end talent. So, but both a lot of depth here. I mean, if you look at even last year's standings, SMU had the best regular season record at 8-0, followed by Clemson and Miami right there. But the bottom of the conference was Florida State, and so I think that's one of those teams. I want to just start here. Start at the bottom and talk about what does a realistic season look like for Florida State this year?
They're already talking a lot of smack to Alabama. Costello, the new quarterback, he's like, oh yeah, we're going to go in, we're going to take out Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
6 guys drafted in this year's draft, and a lot of them went higher than you would expect due to the off year that the defense had last year. So I think this is another thing where we're looking at they're probably going to finish towards the bottom. I think best case scenario for them is middle of the pack.
They were bottom 5 in offense last year in scoring points, with 185 points scored. So, yes, you get some talent, but this team, I don't know that Norvell makes it through this season. I'm surprised they did last year. This team, they had some success there, but it's been very inconsistent. I think he and obviously Brent Venables, who we can get to in later episodes, hot seat is just on fire right now for these two historic programs that are not living up to it right now.
Gave up 28 points a game last year with a defense that had 5 guys drafted, and several of them were the second and third round players. A team with that much talent that gets drafted, should not be giving up 28 points a game, and a weaker conference in the ACC.
A big chunk of teams, I think, even last year and this year, kind of feels the same way. Of not really high expectations from Stanford, Wake Forest, Cal, like all of those teams last year. Even Cal had some fun games last year, but the one that was towards the bottom half last year that people are at least going to have eyes on is going to be North Carolina, obviously with Bill Belichick starting the program there. How last year they were 6-7, lost their bowl game, I believe. But what does a realistic season look like for them this year?
Their 6-7 season, just because we can't expect them to be something special right off the bat, because he is going to have to get his guys in there. He's going to have to get guys that will buy into the way he coaches, and he's done a decent job recruiting right as soon as he got in there. Got some decent recruits, some guys in the transfer portal, but I think it's going to take a year or so for him to really put his DNA into this program. I still think it's going to be another just kind of a you'll make a bowl game because you'll go 6-6 or whatever. But I don't see them really being a team that you can look at as one of the top 2 or 3 teams in this conference. I think maybe we can see if we're going to talk about those teams. I can maybe see Virginia Tech maybe taking a little bit of a step forward. I know a lot of these rankings going to have them lower, but I do look at Kyron Drone and think that he is a good, capable college football quarterback. And like you said, it's kind of a deeper, but I don't think it's so deep that you're like, oh well, yeah, they got a little bit better, but can they, bounce back? The biggest thing is going to be is the defensive side. You only returning 2 starters from that defense, which is going to be a tough situation for them. But I still there's some of these teams that have ranked ahead of them that I just don't know if I see it in them.
This is the jumbled mess that is a massive conference that you're going to see a lot of these teams. But okay, let's go ahead and look at the top half of this team. You have, of course, we mentioned that SMU, surprisingly, their first year there, at Clemson, Miami, Syracuse, Louisville, Georgia Tech, and Duke. That top third. What would you realistically look at this? I mean, there's some good quarterback play. There's some transfers, of course, there, but you have some of the spots that are already in question are already taken care of.
We look at this conference, and Clemson is clearly the best team in this conference, or they should be the best team in this conference. And I mean, you look at the steps that Klubnik, Cade Klubnik took last year. You return your top 3 receivers. Look, running back room will be a little different because you don't have Musa in there anymore or Mustafa. But I think that they should still be the best team in this conference. I think people are pumping Miami too much right now. I I if we get the Carson Beck, if we get the Carson Beck we had last year, it's going to be a worse Miami team than there was last year because you lost your top 4, offensive weapons, not counting Cam Ward. And so that's going to be a big difference there on the offensive side. Yeah, they got some transfers that came in that, put up some production, but like I said, if we get the Cam Ward that we saw most of last year, or um, pump the brakes, Carson Beck. If we get the same Carson Beck we had last year, this is going to be a disaster, and people are going to be like, "How much money did you pay him to come here? 3-4 million dollars. That's insane." Because I don't think he's there. I think the team that people aren't talking enough about is going to be Georgia Tech. I like what they did last year. I like the strides they've made. You bring back Haynes King. You lost some offensive guys, but you were able to bring in some guys that have put up some pretty good production in college football. And I think that they are a team that people aren't really paying attention a whole lot of attention to because that defense last year was pretty stingy. And I think that they may be the surprise team. Like last year, no one saw SMU being in the conference championship game last year. I think this could be the team that surprises everyone in the ACC this year, and we see Clemson versus Georgia Tech in the ACC championship game.
That's your early prediction.
That's my early prediction. The outside team no one's really looking at because I like SMU. I like what they did last year. I love Jennings. I think he really puts a spark into that offense, but they lost a lot of people on that offensive side. And that worries me a lot because they weren't able to do what some of these other teams did and bring in high end transfers to help, fill those voids. And so I think Louisville could potentially be an interesting team too. Bringing in Miller Moss and the way their defense has been over the last few years. But I'm gonna go with Georgia Tech and Clemson as the top 2 teams in this conference this year. Clemson for sure is in. I right now, if I had to give out my top 25, I'd probably have Clemson one or two. And and I and I and a big part of it is I look at the other teams that everyone has ranked first. Texas, Ohio State. I've seen Alabama up there and stuff like that. There's so much transition going on within these teams. Yes, they have the the potential. They have the potential in the makeup, but until we see what these young quarterbacks are capable of, I think it's wild to put them up there because we're looking at Texas and Ohio State, who are usually the one or two in most rankings, and we're talking about probably combined offense and defense somewhere around 9 to 10 new starters.
So maybe that alleviates some of that. But I hear what you're saying. I think this conference could get two this year because of what you're saying, the wide openness, the chaos that is. So you're gonna have to win at the right times, and getting to the conference championship could be a big piece. But if you just miss it, if you just miss the conference championship, maybe that actually bodes well. And maybe you get a team like Duke with a new quarterback out of Tulane, just sneaks by, gets a really good season. So I agree with you on Clemson. I would be my early pick, and we'll get to those picks in a later episode next week. But that's kind of where I'm at too with you. I'm right there with kind of the power, and I don't buy into Miami either. And part of the biggest reason is going to be Mario Cristobal. This is the year either he actually takes another step forward, which he has consistently, or he just kind of peaks where he's at, and it's those close games that I haven't seen him do it, or coach his team to do it. So that, at least at the high level.
System and hoping that they can pick it up fast enough and hoping that you get your quarterback on the same level as those new transfers. So I think it's going to be a little bit of a disappointing year for them compared to what a lot of people are, saying.
The Big 12, which you're saying is the fourth best Power Four conference right here. But we're going to start a little bit here. Just any of the teams that you're expecting the biggest jump forward. I kind of want to change the picture because there's a little bit of excitement around a couple of teams, and I'm just curious, what do you expect? Maybe some of the bottom half of the league to maybe compete this year at the top half.
We can look at a couple teams here, and I really think that yeah, Baylor finished the season really well, but I think this Baylor team is a sneaky team in the Big 12 this year. You bring back Sawyer Robertson, who had a really good second half of the season, but I think the defense is going to be a lot better this year. I think Dave Aranda is going to get them ready to go, and they're going to be a lot more productive than they were. I think this is a team that is could be up there with one of the top teams in the Big 12 and be kind of a sneaky pick that a lot of people aren't looking at right now.
Virginia, two teams that in the very middle. Obviously, West Virginia with the new regime here, but they were. I just want to point this out. West Virginia last year was 0-4 against top 25 teams, while KU was 3-1. Who's more likely to have a better season this year? Both of them last year combined for 11 wins. Not a huge, not definitely below what we expected. Even West Virginia last year, we expected bigger things than this.
Thought about Kansas last year, and the injury to Jalen Daniels just absolutely derailed that season for them. But I think I'll lean towards West Virginia. And there's nothing against Kansas and Lance Leipold. You've listened before. I love Lance Leipold. I think he is an incredible college football coach. What he's been able to do to resurrect that program from the depths of nothing to where they are now, there's just too much offensive turnover for that Kansas team. I think even with Jalen Daniels still there, I mean, you're placing three starters on the offensive line. You're replacing Devin Neal, who was one of the most productive running backs in college football over the last 3 or 4 years. Then on top of that, you're replacing your 3 to 4 best wide receivers on that team also, I think is going to be a big struggle for them that way. I'll lean a little bit towards West Virginia just because it's a tough place to play. And so you get at least half your games there. It's going to be tough, those teams traveling, especially if it's, colder weather, night games, they come to, those fans show up in Morgantown. It is not an easy place to play. So I think I'll lean a little bit towards them just because I feel like they've been more consistent. Yeah, you got a whole new regime in there, but I still feel like they'll be a little bit better than Kansas this year just because of all the offensive turnover.
The season 3-0 pretty quick with their non-conference schedule. Pitt's the only question mark I would guess, but not really concerned about that. Where you look at Kansas State, they're probably they have Missouri, and I do think Missouri is better than KU. But it's the health part. We didn't see Daniels take a step forward like we have. We've actually seen him plateau a little bit. So I would agree with you on that one. I want to see them do well. Their stadium is supposed to be ready to go at the beginning of the year, so a lot of hype around that.
The pictures, did you see the pictures of the end zone?
Actual stadium itself. I'll have to go look it up.
It's pretty cool. The wheat like painted in the end zone for like the wheat of the on the planes and stuff like that. It is pretty sick.
See if I can look it up real quick and find it, but that is awesome. Um, well, let's go ahead. Let's look at this one then. The top half of the team. Who are the teams that you really expect to really challenge for it? And just tell me, please. Colorado is one of these teams, right? Ah, dang, I'm really pulling for this. Come on, Coach Prime.
The thing with Colorado, like we'll just hit them real quick. I think we're gonna see a regression. I mean, the amount of people that they lost in the draft, it's going to be tough. I mean, you lose Shador Sanders, who was one of the best quarterbacks in college football last year, and you could probably even throw him in there the year before. Then you lose the Heisman Trophy winner and Travis Hunter. Then you lose Webster and Jimmy Horn. Then you lost guys, even though the offensive line wasn't great, you lost guys on the offensive line to transfers, and I think that the offense, you got Caden Salter in there. He should be the starter. I've heard, rumors of Juju, potentially taking over that, but I think that they're going to have a little bit of a tough season. I would probably put their win total around 5.5. If we're going over under, I'd say probably about 5.5. But they did, they definitely did. But this year, I think it's way more likely that we see them either more than likely hit the under just because, I mean, they don't have an easy schedule. Even, yeah, they got a couple like non-conference games that are, easy, but your first game is against Georgia Tech. Yeah, yeah. But so I think that'll be tough for them right off the bat to play Georgia Tech. And but so we'll just go ahead and start talking about the top of this. I think Kansas State to me is the top team. Avery Johnson, yeah, Avery Johnson. You bring in the new offense coordinator Matt Wells, who is a quarterback whisperer. If he's able to refine his passing skills a little bit, man, we're talking about a team that could be very dangerous because of the skill set that he has. I mean, Chris Kleiman has done a great job with this program uh, after taking over. They always have a solid defense. Last year, the defense wasn't as, I don't think it was as menacing as it usually is, but it was still really solid when they only, were limiting 5.2 yards per play. And I think it's just going to be even better this year. I think this team is going to be a big threat and should be the favorite, I think, to win the Big 12.
So the other team that I have is Iowa State. Rocco Beck, I really like him. Now, I don't know if you know this. They play in week 0. It's a conference game in Ireland. It's the game that everyone's going to watch. Just wild to see the Big 12. I'm so used to seeing ACC, which makes sense, East Coast. But now you get a K-State, Iowa State, two Midwest teams and a Great Plains team playing in Ireland. It'll be really exciting, but that's a very key matchup early on. But thankfully, there are no divisions, so it doesn't hurt as much.
found that very interesting that they would go with a conference game and Iowa State versus Kansas State, the arguably the two best teams in this conference, right off the bat against each other in Ireland. I was like, when I saw that, I was like, okay, the Big 12's like, hey, put us on the map real quick, show our two teams. But I would have much rather see this game in the middle of the season where both teams are at you know full speed. I want to see them play their best football in the middle of the season. I don't want to see it early on because we may not get to see the best version of both teams right off the bat because it is the first week of the season. So I think that the Big 12 maybe missed out a little bit on there because you put this in the middle of the season. This could potentially be a college game day game because the potential with these teams. Now, Iowa State, you do lose Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, which is a big deal because Jaden Higgins was an absolute monster last year. But they were able to bring in some transfers that have had some success in college football to hopefully offset that a little bit. But yeah, we're both really big on Rocco Beck, and I think we're going to see Rocco take a big step forward this year.
They played a beat in games, and they're going to win a lot of those. But they played a beat in games, which is definitely plays to the advantage. And you like both of the coaching staffs for those. As much as you don't want to like Iowa State's, you got to at least respect. You know what he's
Yeah, you gotta put respect on what Matt Campbell has done. I mean, granted, he may not have the best personality, he may be a little, blah, but he's done a great job with the program.
Yeah. Well, how about this then? We got BYU, who is going to be looking for a new quarterback this year. They were 11-win team last year. I believe played for the Big 12 championship game. Where do they land this year?
I believe. I mean, you lose Retzlaff, but that's a major hit to their team. But then again, you talk about the other players that they lost. I mean, you lose some of your best offensive weapons, wide receiver wise, and now you're kind of scrambling trying to find some of these guys who are going to take over that spot for them. I think it'll be a little interesting, but the quarterback situation right off the bat before season even starts is just a massive, massive hit to their program, and I think we're going to see this team regress quite a bit.
Like that good of a quarterback, but at least he understood the system, and it wasn't like we're going to have to jump ship really quick and adjust. And now they are. I
You're not expecting to switch quarterbacks 2 months before the season starts, and when that happens, that will throw a wrench into anything that you have going on.
had because we're going to ask this question again: how many CFP teams do you see of this one? And going into this right now, we had Notre Dame. We had one non-Power Four conference team that's not Notre Dame. So that's two. We had two from up to two, one or two there. So maybe four. We're just going to round up to say four. How many from the Big 12 do you think make it?
I think we get two. I think there's a legitimate chance we get two. I think Kansas State for sure, and I think Iowa State is another one that I think that we could potentially see in there. I know a lot of people are going to say Arizona State because they won the conference last year, but you lost Cam Scatabo, and granted, you still have Sam Levitt coming back. You have Jordan Tyson, your best wide receiver, returning, but Cam Scatabo was that offense. Sam Levitt is a solid quarterback, but I don't know if he can carry a team to a conference championship into a playoff again.
Because of what Scatabo did. They do have excuse me, Kyson Brown returning, and he was good in backup duty, but just it is a massive gap. So it's going to have to be: is it the system or is it truly the player? I think Boise State's facing that too this year a little bit, but I agree. No, not a whole lot of expectation to be back again, let alone get a first round bye this year.
I think that Scatabo was such an integral part of that offense. I mean, because he didn't just run the football; he caught the football. We even seen him throw the football in the playoff game against Texas. He was the offense for this team, and can those guys, I mean, be anywhere close to what he was? I don't know if they can. I mean, what he did last year was truly incredible because I really believe that he just put the whole team on his back and took him to a playoff.
These next week, we have 2 more episodes next week. We'll do the Big 10 probably one, and we'll do the SEC, I would imagine one, unless W wanna roll those together. It just feels like they should kind of be standalones. Otherwise, we're gonna get skip over Indiana. We don't wanna do that. And you look at this, and that means there's 6 spots left in this 12-team playoff this year. And here's what I want to say to the ACC, the American, or even the Big 12. If you want to have an extra team besides a conference champion, you have to consider, if you're a non-power four, one loss. That's the one you get. If and you had to be a conference champion, even if, or pretty close. Now for the Big 12, you have to say 2 losses is your max with a conference championship, or just miss the appearance. Like maybe your team didn't make it, but you're just on the outside looking in, because you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt against the SEC if they also have 2. They can get up to 3. So just really be aware of what that looks like. As a fan, don't be surprised. We're telling you now, it's happened already to Big 12 before. Remember TCU and Baylor. I just remember it will. They don't get the same respect, even if they should. They don't.
It's the truth of it. I mean, the Big Ten and the SEC are held so much higher than the other ones, which may be to their benefit because, or not to their benefit, but due to the fact that we haven't seen a Big 12 championship and since what 2007, 2008. Yeah, Vince Young. We haven't seen. I mean, the ACC. You had Clemson, but other than that, you haven't had another team that has been competitive besides the Florida State team that went undefeated, but due to the Jordan Travis injury, kept him out. So I think that it's very truthful statement that yeah, you have to have 2 really good teams to be able to get those, to get 2 spots in because we know the SEC and the Big Ten are going to be deeper than most conferences.
Don't miss our next 2 episodes next week, because we're going to break down both the Big 10 and the SEC conference. So if you had not hit subscribe, go ahead, join the W Sports Podcast. It's free. You can always subscribe, so please do it today. It means the world to us. And yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you all next week. But you.